Our second video will again concern linear equations, that's equations for lines, and today we're going to consider point-slope form, which in my personal opinion is actually much easier to work with than slope-intercept form. Now equations in point-slope form look like y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1, where m is the slope and x1, y1 is a point on the line. And again, the form is appropriately named. It's named point-slope. Well, we have a point, x1, y1, and we have a slope, m. For example, if I have the equation y minus 3 equals negative 7x plus 1, I'm going to say that my slope is negative 7, and the point that I'm dealing with is negative 1, 3. Now this can be a little bit tricky to deal with. You might say, hey, where's this negative 1 coming from? Well, it comes from the fact that really what I'm trying to do when I look for that point is I'm looking for a point that makes each side of this equation 0. Because if 0 equals 0, I should be in good shape. Well, negative 1 is the x that's going to make this 0, and positive 3 is the y that's going to make this 0. So basically we're going to be looking for the opposite of the number we see here. But I really prefer to think of it about zeroing out each side as a much safer way to look at this. And let's go ahead and look at an example of how we might use this to graph. So we'll start by looking at graphing y plus 3 equals negative 1/3 times the quantity x plus 5. We should have very little trouble picking out that the slope is negative 1/3. And to find the point, we'll look at this and we'll say, okay, what x value makes x plus 5 0? Well, that's a negative 5. And what y value makes y plus 3 0 is a negative 3. So there's my point, negative 5, negative 3, which goes onto the graph right there. Now my slope of negative 1/3 says go down 1 over 3, and again down 1 over 3, down 1 over 3, or I could even go up 1 over negative 3. And there we have enough points to make ourselves a line. So let's take a look at one more example of this. Now again in this example we should see that the slope m is 4/7, and my point should be 1, negative 2 is what zeroes out both sides, so I have 1, negative 2 as my point. My slope of 4/7 as I go up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 7, right about there, or down 4 and over negative 7. And I got myself a line right there. And now we're going to look at how we would write an equation given some information about a line. And here we'll start out really straightforward. I'm writing a point-slope equation for a line, and the line goes through the point negative 2, 8. So yes, that's a negative 2. And the slope is negative 4/3. Well, again, the name of this form is point-slope form. I have a point and I have a slope, so I can just write this immediately. Y minus 8 equals negative 4/3 times the quantity x plus 2. All right, there's the equation for that line. But clearly I'm going to have to make it a little bit harder. Now it's still pretty straightforward, even if I give you 2 points. The only real work I need to do is finding the slope. So I can say m, the slope, is equal to 17 minus negative 2 over 6 minus 4, which is equal to 19 halves. And then I can say, okay, well the equation for my line is y plus 2 equals 19 halves of x minus 4. Or I didn't need to use this point, I could have used the other one. And I could say, okay, my equation could also be y minus 17 equals 19 halves times x minus 6. Either one of these works. And if you want to convince yourself that either one works, you can solve for y in both of these, putting it into slope-intercept form, and you'll find that if you do that correctly, you will get the same equation each time. Now, one additional wrinkle I'm going to add today is I'm going to talk about the slopes of lines that are parallel and the slopes of lines that are perpendicular. Now, parallel lines have the same slope. So, a line parallel, that symbol means parallel, to y equals negative 2/3 x plus 7 has slope m equals negative 2/3. And it didn't matter what form I did that equation in. I chose to do this one in slope-intercept form, but you can read the slope off of a point-slope form line just as easily. And in any case, the slope of parallel lines is going to be equal. Now, perpendicular lines aren't quite as straightforward. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. And we'll do an example that should make clear what that means. But first I'll just say that when we say the opposite, we mean the opposite sign. So this has to do with sign, so if it was a positive number, you make it negative. If it was a negative number, you make it positive. And reciprocal means that we're going to flip the fraction, sort of like we did when we looked at the multiplicative inverses. So for example, if I want a line that's perpendicular, that symbol means perpendicular, to y plus 5 equals 7/3 times x minus 1, we will have our new slope. M is going to be negative 3/7. So I changed the sign here, that's the opposite part, and I flipped the fraction. 7/3 became 3/7, that's the reciprocal part. And we're going to look at this in terms of asking a question that's maybe a little bit more complicated about how to write the equation for a line in point-slope form. So here we're looking to write the equation for a line that's perpendicular to the line y equals 2x minus 5 through the point negative 82 pi. Now remember that when we're saying we're perpendicular to this line, that's only going to be useful to us in terms of finding the slope of our new line. So our new line is going to have slope m equals negative 7/2. Negative because we need the opposite sign, and 7/2 because we need the reciprocal. We flip that fraction. And so our equation then is just going to look like y minus pi equals negative 7/2 times the quantity x plus 82. And that's about all there is to it. So maybe this was actually easier than some of the previous examples. And at this point I'll go ahead and give you your problems that I'd like you to prepare for class tomorrow. Okay, so for the first problem, please graph y minus 5 equals 3/4 times the quantity x minus 1. For the second, write the point-slope equation for a line through the points negative 7,3 and 2,12. And for the third, please write the point-slope equation for a line through the point 48, negative 27 that is parallel to the line y plus 14 equals negative 14/3 x plus 2. Again, that slope here is a negative 14/3. Thank you, and I will see you tomorrow.